our individual families, though I think there's some things you can take out of this that you can apply to individual families. But it's about how, as a church, we're supposed to be a family. And then I think the church was always part of God's plan to kind of bring everybody together. And while a lot of times that's not worked out. I mean, I know if I were to interview all of you, that I would hear a couple dozen bad church stories about how a church messed that up or didn't quite get it right or it didn't quite go like it was supposed to go. But the dream, I think, was always that. And the goal, I think, was always that. And I think that's what Jesus had in mind when he established the church. And I think that's what Jesus has in mind as the church continues to go and move forward. You can find out a lot about how the world is structured and how the world works just in the first three chapters of Genesis. And it's there that we read God saying it's not good for man to be alone. It's just not good. We're not made to be alone. I talk about this a lot of times. It's an easy wedding thing to talk about because of the verses that follow there. But it applies to everything. It's worth thinking about. This verse in Genesis 2, God says there's something that's not good, and it stands out against all the rest of Genesis 1 and 2, where he makes something, it's good. You know, he makes the light, and he makes the stars and the moon and the rivers and the animals, and over again, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good. And then you get this one sour note there in Genesis 2:18. It's not good. It's not good for the man to be alone. And so he creates a woman, and you see marriage formed in that thing. But even beyond marriage, there's a wrinkle in us that we're not designed to be solitary. Solitary confinement is just such a cruel punishment to do to somebody, even as a kid. To ground somebody in their room, for some kids at least, can just be torture. Can be such a hard thing. We're just not made to be alone. And when you separate us and we have to live life that way, it's painful. It's painful, and it's bracing and discouraging every minute of it. One other thing that's worth pointing out when you think about this verse is that it happens in Genesis 2. In Genesis 3, sin enters the world. So before sin even comes into the world, there's this wrinkle in us. And so it's a wrinkle, I think, that will continue on into heaven. I don't think it's a wrinkle that ever goes away. There's this, because it's a wrinkle that's in God's character and God's personality too, that God, in his personality, that what Scripture says, God is love, right? I mean, his whole aura and personality is tied up in his relational part of him. And I think we're made in his image, and we're not made to be separated either. Before sin ever comes into the world, we have this need in us. Now, that's not to say that sin doesn't make it worse. It sure does. I mean, when sin comes in, then you can add in jealousy and envy and resentment and anger and pride and all the different things that make it more complicated. But even if there were no sin, we're designed to connect. You remember in the story when Adam and Eve first eat the fruit, right? The first thing it says that happened is it says their eyes were opened. They eat the fruit, there's sin in the world, but that sin comes through their eyes. And there's probably a whole lot of stuff you could see there and think about there, but they see the world different. The big change between before sin and after sin is they see the world different. And it says the very first thing they noticed with their new eyes is that they were naked. And I don't think it was like before they had no idea that they were naked. I just think they didn't care. It didn't matter. But now it does matter. And it's not so much that you see the other person naked, though you do maybe notice some blemishes or moles or wrinkles you didn't see before, but that you're naked in front of them and that they can see you. One of the real consequences of sin is that suddenly I'm very self-aware of who I am and what I have going on and who I represent and what I'm about. And so I'm aware the other person's evaluating me. I'm aware the other person's judging me, that they're making decisions about me and that I can't control those decisions. And I'm lonely even when I'm with somebody, right? I mean, before Adam and Eve are together and they're in perfect intimacy, but now they realize that they realize how naked they are. They realize how exposed they are. One of the first consequences of sin is clothes, which is a whole nother, it's worth thinking about. That's a whole nother thing. But one of the first things, and with God, they both go and hide. They don't want God to see them either. There's something about sin that makes us really aware of how we fall short. And so we're tempted to hide and to cover ourselves up and disguise ourselves and camouflage ourselves and to reject relationships, which is terrible news because we're made to relate. It's not good to be alone. And yet we do all these things that push us to be alone. We do all these things that create loneliness. A couple of years ago, the Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, he wrote I'm probably mispronouncing that name, but Vivek Murthy, and he wrote an article, a long article called Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation. And the Surgeon General of the United States said that in his opinion, as a country, we were having a crisis of loneliness. He said 1/3 of Americans felt disconnected from people. They just aren't connected. They realize they're naked. They can't connect. 1/4 of Americans would say they have no support. They're basically all alone in the world. People who struggle very powerfully with isolation and loneliness have an increased risk, Murthy said, of a heart attack, of stroke, of dementia, of death. If you compared it, if you were to be crisis lonely, was worse, he said, than smoking 15 you could smoke 15 cigarettes a day and be healthier. The better to smoke with friends than to be alone. And it just did all this damage. And what he found, not just him, but it's been documented a lot since then too, is technology drives that. This technology we have that can be used to connect so easily with one another is helping to keep us apart. And you see it, right? You go to a restaurant and there's people all around you and they're sitting there together, but they're on their phones, right? And you tell your wife, isn't that weird? And she says, give me a second, because she's on her phone. And then she can answer and say, oh yeah, that is weird. And it happens in a house. You've got TV on, but 3 of the 5 or 6 people in there aren't watching it. They're watching their phone. You can be together and be apart at the same time. Technology makes that possible. Even when you're with people, you're alone. You're just not connected. I don't think this is true so much in Lawrence County. I don't, from what I can see at least, but maybe it is. Nationwide, there's one report that says as much as 3/4 of restaurant orders are to go. If you count the drive-thrus and everything else, people don't want to stay and eat. They just want to get the food and be separate. There's a website called OnlyFans, which is basically a pornography website. Their motto is that they sell authentic community, that you can connect with these women online and have a real relationship. And it's not a real relationship. I mean, in almost every way, it's not a real relationship. It's a pretend thing. And technology makes that possible, and OnlyFans made $7.2 billion last year. The average worker, the average woman who takes her clothes off for people, made less than $200 a month. There's a case with a man named Adam Rain. He's a 16 or 17-year-old. He had a chatbot friend on ChatGPT. You can set up a chatbot friend where you can communicate, and that chatbot gets to know you, and you can communicate. And the chatbot is set up to encourage you. Whatever you want to do, it's supportive. And Adam Rain was having a hard time in school and having a hard time with his family and having a hard time with relationships like we do. And he would go and complain about it to this chatbot and started to tell the chatbot that he was thinking about killing himself, that he was thinking about ending the whole thing. And the AI was supportive. Hey, you got to do what's best for you. You've got to do whatever you think's right. Trust your heart. Let to your own heart be true. Just be, what you know. And he did kill himself. His parents are suing ChatGPT and OpenAI, which owns it. You see, the hard part with that, or with the OnlyFans thing, or just with the phone stuff that can get out of hand, it creates an illusion of connection, but you're still basically by yourself. It's not a real relationship. It's not a real thing. And you're not designed to be alone. You're not your best person alone. You don't need somebody who's just going to say every idea you have is a good one. In a real relationship, things are much more complicated. You know, Julia sometimes will say things that to me that she wouldn't say to a friend. Kind of hard things. You know, like, that shirt looks terrible. I can't believe she would ever say that to somebody else that she knows or likes. But she says it to me. She might say something about, I can't believe what you said there at that, we all got together. You shouldn't have said that. And she knows when she gets into it, it's going to be an argument. But she gets into it anyway. That's how relationships work. I think about other, bosses I've had through the years who took me into a separate room and just dressed me down because I wasn't doing something right. And I didn't like any of that. If I could have chosen, I would have got out of it. But I needed it. I didn't think so at the time. But you never do at the time. I think about teachers who corrected me and pushed me around. Coaches who tried to make me better than I was. I mean, we need those connections. There's a verse that's kind of famous, Proverbs 27, is iron sharpens iron, right? So we sharpen each other. And when iron sharpens iron, it throws a lot of sparks, and it creates a lot of heat, but we need that. And when we don't have that, when we don't have that person or persons to bounce off of, left to our own devices, we can make a lot of bad decisions. You know, the 12-step stuff, which is not even totally, it's based on some Christian thought, but it's not a Christian program in and of itself. It's still based really heavily on community. They've discovered that if we can at least bounce off of one another, there's strength there. And it's embarrassing to stand in front of that circle and say, I'm Jeff and I drank again last night. I'd been sober for a long time, but I blew it last night. That's embarrassing and it's painful, but I need them to see me there. I need them to see me naked there, right? I need them to see that I don't have it all together. And when they do see that, and I allow them to see that, well, it grows me. I'm a better person. It strengthens me. And there's something about going into a circle like that, and a guy could have struggled with alcohol his whole life, and he says, I've been sober for 200 days, and last night was really hard. I almost blew it. And all those guys see you in your weakness, and they encourage you, and they push you forward, and you find strength to do something with them that you never would have had by yourself. And it's a picture of community. The church, when it's working like it's supposed to work, is a picture of community. Now, sometimes church just looks like this room. And if we're being completely transparent here, while there is some value to what we do in here, quite a bit, I think, you're not really exposing yourself at all in this room. In fact, you just see the back of the people's heads in front of you. You don't even get to make eye contact if you don't want to. And if you're careful about it, you can avoid pretty much anybody you want to avoid here. You don't have to reveal anything. And that's not bad, but you need more. You need to have one or two or three or a dozen people who know you, who can speak truth into your life, and that you listen to them. And even when it hurts, you'll be sharpened by it. It'll make you grow. And I think this was always God's hope for us. In the Psalms, there's this long section here, and I found it getting ready for this whole series. This verse was in my head for the whole series. It says, sing to God, sing in praise of his name, extol God who rides on the clouds, rejoice before him. His name is the Lord. He's a father to the fatherless, a defender of widows. That's God in his holy dwelling. God sets the lonely in families, and he leads out prisoners with singing. I think in Psalms, the psalmist there, the guy who wrote the song, is predicting a time when in that day, community was controlled by the men. So if you didn't have a dad, if you didn't have a husband, you kind of were separated from the economy. And the psalmist is talking about a time when God will be that dad, that God will be that husband, that God will be the protector and the provider, and he's going to set the people who are all by themselves in families. That's the dream, right? That nobody's alone. And it's a powerful dream. I mean, every effective TV show, it seems like, plays on this dream. Even families where the people are a mess, the Sopranos or Breaking Bad or something like that, you still see this strange family develop, and these strange relationships and connections, and it hooks you. I mean, we're hungry for it. We know in our heart of hearts that that's what is supposed to happen, and it's attractive. It's an easy fantasy to want to engage in, and because it's deep in us, right? Even before sin came into our lives, we intuitively know it's not good to be by ourselves. That God has this, and a break by yourself is great. Some time alone hiking by yourself in the woods, that's fine. But we're not meant to be alone all the time. And I think Jesus picks up on this idea. And he says, it's your love that's going to make people know who you are. Standing out against the rest of the world, right? Every other part of the world, it's competitive. It can be kind of mean. Over the last couple of weeks with the whole Charlie Kirk thing, I've had to kind of get off social media. Because every so often I'll run across somebody who just says the most awful things about people who stand really on both sides of that issue, and it's not a both sides issue. I'm not meaning that, but it's just the language we use to describe people who disagree with us, and the way that we talk about people. If you believe this, then just unfriend me now. If you think this way, I don't want to talk to you anymore. We're done. And our whole world is characterized by that sort of thing. But Christians aren't supposed to be. In fact, Jesus says it's that quality that you're going to seek relationship when everybody else is quick to reject. Just unfriend me now. While everybody else is quick to reject that, the mark of the Christian is that you're going to keep going after people, the prodigal son, right? That you're not going to quit. You're going to be like that shepherd who keeps looking for the one lamb that's away. Because we believe that love of God and that love for one another is going to sustain us. Jesus often was in lonely places. Jesus often would have to be alone to do what he had to do to face the right things. But he's never lonely. He's deeply connected with God. And he builds these deep relationships with flawed disciples. He's our example. And we learn what love looks like through how he acted. 1 John chapter 4, 8 and 12 says, whoever doesn't love doesn't know God, because God's love. And no one has ever seen God. But if we love each other, then God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. Now, one of our mottos as a church, our mission statement, is we want to know Christ, we want to know God, we want to love others, we want to serve the world. And this love others is a very important part of that. We are looking for relationships that are deeper than superficial. Now, it may just be one or two people, but we think it's a high priority as a church to build those friendships. I'll just ruin it for you ahead of time. On these handouts that we do, the action step this week is to make relationships a higher priority. Have supper as a family, date your spouse, join a small group, say only kind things on social media. Some of these things will be easier for you than others, and that's okay. But prioritize relationships. Call somebody you've not seen for a long time and go get something to eat. Tell them that, send a card to somebody. Do something this week to build those relationships, because if we love one another, then God shows up in that. I mean, he shows up, people can see it, but he shows up for us too. You know, there's so much of what we do in church, if we're being honest, it's very hard. It's hard to turn the other cheek. It's hard to forgive people. It's hard to stay pure. It's hard to prioritize him above my own stuff. All that's hard. But when I love, and when I'm caught up in love, and when I've built these relationships, and I'm letting iron sharpen iron, and we're pushing one another towards the right things, God moves in that, and it really is the WD-40 that kind of greases the wheel. I mean, when I'm loving like I'm supposed to, when I have those relationships, it becomes easier to do the things that I know I need to do anyway. So, with all that in mind, I just wanted to look at Paul gives some tips on how to do it. And I just want to look at that real fast. Won't take very long, and then we'll be done. Quick, easy, and painless. Paul says if you want to be that kind of person, build those relationships, right? He says, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion and kindness and humility, gentleness and patience. So clothe yourselves, right? Like a kid putting on dress-up clothes. And that kid pretends to be a cowboy, and they're not really a cowboy, but they've got the cowboy clothes on. And for an hour, they're going to be a cowboy. And at first, it might feel a little fake. It might feel a little fake for some time. That's okay. You're dressing like Christ, right? I'm going to clothe myself with these things. I'm going to put them on. That's not hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is when I act a certain way so that you'll like me more, or so you'll respect me more, or so you'll treat me like I know more than I know. This is not that. This is just following Jesus. And I am being kind, and I am being compassionate to people who may not deserve it, and that often does, make my life move a little smoother, but that's not really the point. I want to be like Christ. I want them to get some sort of picture of what Jesus does to a person if that person trusts him. And so we clothe ourselves with that. That word compassion, the literal Greek of it says, let me find it here, I wrote it down, the bowels of mercy, which is, I'm glad they translated it, compassion there. The Greek of it is have the bowels of mercy. And it's it's really dated language, right? But it's like in your gut. In your gut. Now, we still use that language. You know, I had a gut, like my gut told me I should do this, or in my, if I have guts, then I'm brave. It's that kind of idea. And compassion's supposed to be that kind of a thing, that I choose to, it does take guts to be compassionate. It does take some courage to show people grace when they aren't always graceful to you. Kindness, and I'm just on purpose being nice. Nicer to people who don't deserve it. I get treated hard. I don't respond with hard. It's a tough thing. Humility. Humility is there's a Rick Warren quote that's really good here. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. If you're really talented at anything, humility is not pretending that you're not talented, right? It's just not thinking about it too much. When I first got into preaching, the church I was at in Tennessee expected you to stand in the back and say hi to everybody when they leave, and I still try to do that if I can get back out there. I don't always get there, but that's my intention, to get out there and say goodbye to people when they leave. And people would, partly just to be nice, would say something to you about it. Hey, good sermon. Probably even if they didn't mean it, they'd say it because we already going to, something to say. And there I am, and they would say, hey, good job today. And I would feel like humility was rejecting that. So they'd come out and they'd say, hey, good job today on that sermon. I say, oh no, it wasn't that good. And what's that do, right? It just forces them to double down. Oh, no, it was really good. No, I quit now. No, it was awesome. You did such a great job. And they might not even mean it, right? And you'd stretch out this small little compliment into this great big one. And finally, the senior minister called me aside and said, what are you doing? And he explained all that to me. And I'm not doing it on purpose, I said. He said, well, then don't. Just if they say something like that, just say thank you. And that's, again, I just don't want to think about myself that much at all. It's not pretending that you're not good at anything. That's not humility. If you're the best man for the job, it's okay to admit that. It's just not putting yourself first all the time. Not having to get the last word. Gentleness and patience. We just learn on purpose to let others go first. We learn on purpose to let others get their way sometimes before we do. And it's real hard. And it won't always feel genuine. That's what that clothe yourself thing is. I'm choosing to put this on. It won't always come natural. And then one more verse, same section though. He says, bear with each other, forgive each other. You know of any grievance anybody has against anyone? St. Augustine believed that this verse, actually the whole section, he thought it moved in an order. Look back to verse before, like you start with compassion and just work at that. You know, actually kind of having a heart for people. You know, try to see them and see what they need. Just try to open your eyes more. And then you go from compassion to kindness and you just try to meet the need that you see. And hopefully that leads to humility, where you're not thinking about yourself, you're thinking about them. Hopefully that leads to gentleness and patience. And only after you've kind of got some of those things rolling along do you get to forgiveness. And then suddenly you're finding yourself strong enough to forgive even significant things. Doesn't mean you trust them again, but you can learn to say, I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm not going to meditate on it every time I'm alone. You know? I've talked about this before, but isn't it weird how when you have an unforgiveness thing, as soon as you get alone, it pops into your head. You're driving, or you're in the shower, or you're just getting ready to lay down for bed, and all of a sudden you're getting mad again as you think about this thing. Because left to your own thoughts, left to your own devices, we don't head the right direction. But as I start taking Christ on, and I'm building him into my life, well, then I find that I have the strength to forgive. I can forgive like Jesus forgave. I can look at him and his example, and I'm putting clothes on to be like him. And only then, after I do all that, am I really strong enough to love like I should. It's only then that I finally am able to be the kind of human being I want to be. I mean, the pop songs tell us that love makes the world go around and all you need is love, but most of us don't live that way. I don't think we have the strength to get there by ourselves. I think we have to lean real hard into Christ. And then as we lean real hard into Christ and we clothe ourselves with him, right? We on purpose make it our goal to be more compassionate and to be more kind. We even maybe set disciplines for it. You know, I'm going to work on this week. I'm going to pray about this week. We connect ourselves with one or two or three other people. And we push one another to go this direction. Well, I find that I can become the kind of person that I really want to be. I think about the people in my life who have made the most difference. I mean, those people in my life who, if I were to say, these are the guys who made me me. You know, these are the guys who made me who I am. There might be some who are just heroes, you know, who I've not met. You know, but they did some awesome achievement, and I admire the awesome achievement. And you know, I don't know who that'd be, Abraham Lincoln or even Jesus. I mean, I've not bounced off of him, but I've read about him and I've prayed to him and I've thought about him and he inspires me. But when I think about those people who have really made me me, most of them aren't people from history. They're people who invested in me, who cared about me, who sacrificed for me. They loved me. And in that love, I changed. This is the dream. So as we leave here, right, and like I said, what we do here is important. It is. It's valuable and it's important. It's a good time to think together on one topic. It's a good time to sing together, or if you don't sing, at least focus on those words. Good time to take communion together. to share together. All those things are awesome. All those things are important. But you need more than that to really become who you're supposed to be. You need those relationships. So I want to challenge you again on 3 or 4 levels here, and I want you to think about it. I want you to make a decision this week that you're going to reinvest in your most important relationships. Take your daughter on a date, or have a special time set up to go with your son or with your husband or wife, or those 2 or 3 or 4 friends that are so important to you, but you don't ever seem to have time. Make a plan. We talk about small groups in here all the time. Small groups are our industrial tool as a church to help people get connected, and it's effective. I really do think so. So if you're not connected that way, make a plan to find a group and get connected. Find 1 or 2 or 3 Christians and say, hey, could we just get together sometimes and talk about faith, or talk about God, or talk about our families or our marriage or whatever else it needs to be. This is not that complicated. Your instinct will keep you from doing it, though. That's what sin does. We're not made to be alone, but we're scared to take a chance on being with anybody. They'll see our nakedness. I just want you to pray real hard this week about taking that chance. And I should mention, if you're not prioritizing your connection with God, we always want to take a chance to prioritize that. And so as we sing here at the end, and as we praise God at the end, and we worship here at the end, there'll be people in the front who will pray with you. And if you need to do anything, pray about anything, man, take advantage of that. Come up there and ask them to pray with you and to lift you up, and they'll do it. Ask them to keep praying for you, and they'll do it. And we just encourage you to take advantage of that this morning. Get right with God. I want you to stand up. I want the band come back up. Let me pray with you.